How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about The Loved Ones from 2012. Well, to be fair, some places list this as '09. I'm not sure why there's a discrepancy. The back of my box says 2012, and there's another movie just called Loved Ones without the that came out in 2009, so let's say 12 to make sure they're more distinguishable. I do wonder, though, this is an Australian movie. Maybe they got it a few years before America did. I don't know. But anyway, The Loved Ones. Love very loosely fits into the February theme, but hey, I wanted to watch it. I had heard really good things about this movie, and I'm glad to say that after having seen it, I understand where all that hype was coming from. This is written and directed by Sean Byrne, stars Robin McLeavy and Xavier Samuel. And like I said earlier, this is an Australian horror movie, and Australia really should get more credit when people are talking about foreign horror films. I mean, they put out Wolf Creek as well, and I watch a lot of Shudder original and exclusive movies, and it seems like they put out a good chunk of those. So Australia is really killing it with the horror movies lately. But anyway, let's go ahead and talk about the plot of this movie. No major spoilers, but I want to make sure you guys have a basic understanding as to what this movie's about, as well as say my piece on a few plot points. You get the main character, Brent. He's driving with his dad, learning how to drive, when suddenly there's a deranged man in the middle of the road. He swerves to miss him, crashes into the tree, and that kills the dad. Now we cut to a little bit later. He's doing about as well as you would think he'd be doing. He's very sad and blames the whole thing on himself. Well, while he's at school, he meets a girl named Lola, who asked him to the prom. Well, technically it's end-of-year dance, which I guess is what Australia calls it. Lola asks him to the prom. He turns her down because he already has a girlfriend, but he does it politely, though. You see, Brent's in a bad spot, but he's not really a bad guy. A little bit later, you get this scene where he's climbing rocks, and he grabs on with one hand and leans back. He's imagining falling, but when his hand starts to slip and he might actually fall, he clings to those rocks really tight. And you see it's a very good show, don't tell moment where you see that he's thinking about this stuff, but that's not what he wants. Now, after that happens, he is beside the rocks, lying down, getting some rest, when Lola's father comes, knocks him out, throws him in the back of his truck, or I think it's just a car, and he wakes up at Lola's house tied to a chair. The whole house is decorated for prom, for a little prom, for just Lola and him. And he better hope that Lola is pleased, because if she gets mad, bad things will happen to him. And if at the end of the night she rejects him as a prom date, a very dark fate will come to him. And I've seen a lot of scary movies, and I've seen some brutal scenes, but the thing they come up with, the very end, I won't spoil it, it was a legitimately dark fate, and I have to give them major props for some creativity there. I was like, okay, that's a good one. I've seen lots of redundancies, but the end of this movie. But anyway, his mom, his girlfriend, and this cop are all going to be looking for him, so hopefully they can save him from that plot. In regards to the tone, there's lots of torture and stuff, but they know a thing. This movie actually did remind me of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I necessarily, when you see it's a prom movie, I wouldn't have thought Texas Chainsaw Massacre from a prom movie, but it really does fit, especially wakes up at the table like the dinner scene, and you even get the mom in this movie very much like Grandpa from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So there was definitely notes from that movie, and it works in a surprising way. But there's lots of torture, lots of chases, and one thing, though, I want to point out, it knows with the torture, a good scene that illustrates this. There's a scene where the character is getting stabbed in the foot, and you do see it, but not as long and not as graphically as you might expect. But what they show you when the scene's going on is the character's acting. Because when you have a torture scene, yeah, gore's important, gore's works. And I don't want to diss gore, because there's some pretty cool gore, not just in this movie, but, you know, gore in general is fun. But with this movie, show the actor's reaction to it. That's what helps sells that this really hurts, that this is a bad thing happening. And it's kind of hard to sell the acting in this movie, because you have your guy that's getting tortured, and he's already pretty hard-hearted from his hard life, and he also doesn't want to show he's in pain. But the audience has to know, and the audience has to feel that, even if he's not going to show it. And to be able to show that without just having him scream was very hard to do. So major props to the actor for pulling it off, as well as the crazy family torturing him. They don't really think what they're doing is wrong, so it kind of is a weird thing, because you could just do a maniacal laughing torturer, but it really is kind of more disturbing when they're doing something horrific and they think they have every right to, and it's, but really cool scenes that don't get too gratuitous, but really do sell that bad, dark things are happening, and they're only going to get worse throughout the rest of the night. In this family, you have some pretty cool characters. You have Lola herself, which is a very, very great horror villain. You see, there's shades all throughout this movie of what she might have been like if she was a normal person. And, you know, you get her as a general fun-loving girl, but you know she's been told she's a princess her whole life and never learned any self-doubt, never learned that things are wrong, and she just has the idea that she gets to do whatever she wants. And you really get to see what a person unchecked could become, and it'd be way too easy to just make her laughing and maniacal and evil. And she does laugh, but you see she laughs because she legitimately finds the situation humorous. And she's like, oh, this thing, you know. And that really is a creepy way to come off, and you see her putting together creepy scrapbooks, but, you know, she thinks, oh yeah, it's a nice, beautiful scrapbook. And when her world is called into question, when he fights back and she's like, wait, you're challenging my power, getting to see her wrath come out, she, by the end of this movie, you know, she's good in the beginning, but by the end, she really turns into a force to be dealt with. You also have the father in this movie, who is the one enabling her, and he looks like a normal guy, like an accountant, and he chases after you, but it's never screaming or I'm gonna get you. He'll walk after you fast, but with a stern look on his face, like, oh, I better go get you now. And there's even one scene where he hits his car against something trying to chase this guy, and he gets out of the car calmly and looks down to inspect the damage and then goes back to chasing him. And it's these really cool character moments, but yeah, he's the enabler in this crowd. And I talked about how there's shades of Texas Chainsaw. If you look at the credits in Texas Chainsaw, they listed all the killers by nicknames and never gave you any of their real names. And if you look through the sequels, you can piece a lot of it together. In this movie, even though we know Lola's real name, they credit her as Princess. It's Princess Daddy, and the mom is Bright Eyes, I believe. So I really did like, in the credits, that little Easter egg to Texas Chainsaw by crediting them all with their, you know, villain names. But, yeah, some really cool characters there. And like I said, really sold by the acting and the escalation. And I mean, I alluded to it before, but one thing that really surprised me was the third act of this movie. Because, you know, we all see movies with tortures and then you get a few good chase scenes. But I did not expect that final level of escalation. And when you get the real reveal of what the loved ones means, it is a great ending with really dark stuff, and it goes to a dark point, and that's really what I do want to stress. Great dark moments at the end there, so that is pretty cool. Now, I do want to cover a few flaws. One, there's this character that's introduced early on, and later you find out he has a connection to this other character, and I thought, okay, well, that's a little bit of a stretch. And then you find out he has a connection to another character, and I'm like, okay, I mean, it's good to reincorporate him, but it was just a little bit of a stretch there with, you know, oh, this one guy from the beginning who you thought was just kind of random actually connects to these other two characters, and it doesn't really affect the plot too much. It ties things together more. It's just, at the same time, what are the odds of that? But the big thing, and I don't know what to call this, a flaw, I guess, but it's really like, what was this this element? Brent has a friend at school, kind of a dork, and he asks this really attractive girl out to the prom. She says yes, and while he's being tortured, and while his family and friends are looking for him, this guy doesn't even know he's missing, and he's on this weird date with this girl out of his league, and you wonder, did she go out with him for the drugs, because he has lots of marijuana? Did she go out with him just to fill some void in her heart? And you're kind of wondering what this relationship is, but then at the end of the movie, this plot doesn't really interact with the main plot. I mean, you get, again, one revelation, but it does, like, these characters don't help in any way, and they get a ton of screen time where it's these two at the real prom, and they're, you know, making out and doing marijuana and stuff, but they don't really tie into the end at all, and I'm like, what was this whole subplot about? Why do these two characters matter? And they're given a lot of screen time. Now, it was good to break up the monotony of, well, I mean, not monotony, but the torture scenes might have become monotonous if they didn't have anything to break them up. And that, I guess, is what these scenes serve. But other than that, it's like a completely unrelated story that at the end doesn't have much to do with the main plot. And I really just wonder, what's the deal with this? Maybe it's something I'm missing. But anyway, I don't want to rant on that too long, because, yeah, there are those two flaws. But that's about it as far as what's wrong with this movie. There's lots of good stuff in this movie, and it's one of those, you know, I had heard a little bit about it. It wasn't super mainstream horror, but I was actually really surprised with how good this was. I expected it to be good, but it was a little better than, I mean, actually a lot better than what I expected. And it is the characters and the acting and this really great new villain and the escalation at the end. Yeah, this is a really fun movie. And if you like things like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, yeah, go ahead and give this a watch. It does get dark, so if that's not your cup of tea, I get that. But this is actually really fun and a nice, pleasant surprise, so I definitely recommend it to us horror geeks. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping this channel out. I do primarily horror movies on here, so if you stick around, I'm sure there'll be more stuff that you like. I'll put a relevant playlist on the bottom, so if you guys want to see more, there should be more videos like this there. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day.